so that we can call you forward, and the first one will come from over there.
You've got time. The first one I have is Roger Flagave. Roger?
He's coming around,
Oh,
it looks
okay.
like.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, great. I'm the president of the Federal Way Public Market Board, and I'm here to present to the members of the committee our copy of our marketability study and SWOT report. And I would like to give that to you right now. And if you have any additional questions before I do that, because we're really interested in helping make Federal Way a walkable city.
Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you very much. Okay, next person up here is Marie Shakwa.
Good evening, and I'm in Federal Way, and I'm going to talk about no O&M at the Steel Lake Annex. And I believe Mr. Walsh has not gone through all the proper steps on this O&M. I don't think there was any public meeting. There wasn't Parks and Recreation and Human Services Committee report. I don't think he went to the Parks Commission. And I don't think he ever looked at other real estate options. And I handed out something at the council meeting. Property at South 336 and Pacific Highway cost a lot less than what was proposed. I know the O&M was presented here to land use on June 6th, and then all of a sudden it was presented to the council on July 19th. I think something that is this costly should be a unanimous vote by the council, not by just a few. I'm going to talk about what is a covenant. The definition of a covenant is it's a contract with an agreement between parties creating mutual obligation that are enforceable by law. Brett McFall was the city manager at Federal Way and accepted all those and the deeds in 1991. I also gave a handout, I didn't give one to Tran, but in 2016, Kent had a very similar program. The city had sold the property to the park. So the people ask, is that sale good? And of course, the county said it wasn't good because the county had given the site to Kent through a forward thrust measure passed by the voters in 1960. And then, like I said, in 1991, Federal Way took our park with the deeds. So it is by law that the covenants are enforceable. Don't take our park away. It could be improved. It could have pickleball, tennis courts, and basketball courts. Also, there are 2 senior centers close to the annex where they can walk and also take their dogs. And for the last couple of days, I've been over there, and they're all dogs. Public Works has already taken part of the Steel Lake Park. There's trailers, fences, garbage cans, picnic tables, and they're already using that park for their own use. Don't take our park away. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Suzanne Vargo?
Those are not helpful with my new surgery. Thank you,
There you go.
Commission. The decision to take our beloved Annex Park is absolutely unacceptable. You know it, and the citizens who have spoke up against the decision know it. There is a legal binding deed that prohibits the city from commandeering this space. What explanation can you provide today that justifies your decisions of compliance for this project? No other space is comparable. End of story. It is not within the realm of imagination for you or the city to say it has satisfied the needs of the citizens with other surrounding parks. What other parks? Town Square, the tiny, impervious, drug-infested park that the city had to rebuild because it had insufficient and badly planned. Just because the city wasted funds on this space does not justify saying it has spent adequate money on behalf of the public. For the city to suggest it will improve Lakota, Sacagawea school facilities is a joke. Considering the 2019 Parks Recreation Open Spaces Plan says that the 2006 master plan for these spaces has yet to be satisfied. The city, again, does not get to substitute time, money, and efforts into something that should have been satisfied years ago. The PROS plan indicated that the number one goal when surveyed by the citizens was the desire to improve on our existing community parks, not our school properties. Town Square is not equal or better than the Annex Park as it does not provide active, structured, recreational activities. Again, this is a requirement for a community park, which must be within our walkable city core. The city is going against every plan they have committed to developing comprehensive growth management and this PROS. The only way we, the citizens, can stop this madness is to sue the city. This is not possible in the amount of time we have been allotted through the streamlined process. The city wasted 27 years getting their act together when they should have been securing lands and funding for such an elaborate project, but are now feeling righteous and cramming this down our collective throats, not listening to the citizens' desires, nor involving the Parks Departments for their response. We, the citizens, do not have the money to pay for legal expenses, and in our diverse community, all citizens are being bullied and marginalized. Demanding the facility be put within the city core is foolish. SKFR is outside of the city core to enable them to be able to get to their employees to the facility to be able to assist the city safely and responsibility. If a catastrophic event does happen, like having EJ's fuel line explode, we cannot afford another Whatcom County. The fiery lake was over 2,000 degrees and children died. They simply would not, the majority of the park's employees live outside of the city, and they simply would not be able to get to the facility if tragedy did strike. If SKFR has decided that outside of the city core is the best, maybe we should behoove this as well. You have an obligation to your constituents. I'm asking for the commission to oppose any further approval of the O&M site at Annex Park, and I thank you greatly.
Thank you very much. Catherine North?
First, thank you for hearing me tonight, and I agree with the previous speakers about the park, but that's not what I came here to speak about. SeaTac, Des Moines, Normandy Park, Kent, Auburn, all have a senior center. Every one of those cities is smaller than Federal Way. We have no senior center. I love the idea of having a public market in where the old Target building is. But there's also plenty of room for a senior center. It's close to the drug-infested, I didn't know, park. There's many senior housing around. There's much senior housing around there. There's other places to walk. There's shopping. They're close to the mall. It's close to public transportation. It is a perfect place for a senior center. And before anybody mentions the community center, bless your heart, yeah, they have a lot of trips for seniors. But if you go down to the Auburn Senior Center, where I've volunteered for years, you will see people hang out, they drink coffee and visit with their friends. Isolation is a huge problem with seniors. And if you go down there, you see people playing Mexican train dominoes, playing bingo, playing Scrabble, and visiting with each other. They have movies. They have different activities that they do together. And that can't happen up there at the community center. Somebody mentioned on Facebook, they were talking about that they had resources. They have a room, and outside it says senior lounge. I volunteer up there at the community center. Every time I've been there, the room is dark and closed. There's no programming. If you don't want to go on a trip, there's nothing there for, I'm not talking about the gym, but there's nothing there for the seniors. And when you look at the hundreds of thousands of seniors living in Federal Way, and the fact that there is no senior center for them, The one out on 352nd, you can't get to it by bus. No public transportation goes out there. It's open right now, 2 days a week, according to its website. And it is underfunded because it's not a city, it's outside the city limits. So I would like to see us seriously consider, if not there alongside the public market, we need to think about having a senior center. I'll give the rest of my time to somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments, Catherine. Are there any other individuals that would like to address the council before we move on our agenda? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming forward. And your message is, we've heard it. Not that we're going to make any decisions on it right now, but thank you for coming forward and bringing up your concerns. We'll now move to committee business. Is there any committee business that we need to bring up? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item A, which is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Chair, if I might,
Go ahead.
I recommend a change to the existing minutes, specifically as to item or topic D, as it's currently written in the minutes. Currently, it reflects that the motion from the last LUTC meeting was to table item D to the November 7th, 2022 consent agenda for review. After listening to the recording, the actual motion was to table item D, not to a date certain. So it was just a motion to table item D, period. So I would recommend that we make that modification to the minutes prior to approval.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
Mr. Chair, I will try.
This is the chair.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes for October 3rd, 2022, with the recommended modification by the Assistant City Attorney.
Is there a second? I don't see Jack out there, so I will second it. All in favor? Oh, there he is. Can you hear us, Jack?
I can hear you most of the time.
Okay. Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded to amend the minutes and approve them as recommended by our city attorney. All in favor?
Is this item B or item D?
Item D,
B,
Delta.
Delta.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay, thank you. It's moved, pass. And now we'll go to item B, which is the 27th Avenue Southwest at Southwest 344th Street Compact Roundabout, 85% design report and bid authorization.
Hey, this is Jack. I have Jack Walsh. I have a quick question. Should we, on Zoom, should we be able to see anything? We're not seeing anything at all.
You're not seeing the screen?
We're not seeing the screen, no.
Should we have start video turned on? Mine says the video is turned off.
Okay, now I see it.
Oh.
Thank you.
There you go, thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is...
You're on.
Oh, thank you. My name is Omar Barone. I am a senior civil engineer for the City of Federal Way. I'm here to provide an 85% design update and also seek approval and authorization to bid this project. About that better? Okay. So this project is to construct a compact roundabout at Southwest 344th Street at the intersection of 27th Avenue. So this is our existing condition as it stands today. So east to west, 344th is not stop controlled. North to south, 27th Avenue is stop controlled. We have a lack of marked crosswalks. We do have wheelchair ramps, but they're not ADA compliant as it stands today. And we also have one street light, so it makes it visibility at night rather difficult. This is our proposed condition. So the very first thing that we notice about the roundabout is the chicaning of the travel lanes, which will help to slow down and control the vehicle speeds entering the roundabout from all directions. We have marked crosswalks. We have compliant wheelchair ramps. And we also plan to add street lighting to increase the visibility of the intersection at night. This is our current project funding. We have funding from various sources that are identified here, but mostly we are funded through a federal safety grant on this project. And at this time, our projected budget and our estimated expenditures are all in balance and in line. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions?
No questions for me, only the suggestion to speak into the mic a little more so we can hear better.
Okay, we'll bring the mics up. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I do have a question.
Oh,
Chair.
question, sorry.
Thank you. Omar, assuming that the full council approve to complete the design and authorize the bid, when are we going to do this construction and when are we going to complete this project?
Absolutely, yes. So our current schedule would be to spend the month of December gaining WashDOT concurrence to advertise. Then we'll spend the month of January kind of getting all the final pieces put together. We have an ad date of February 10th and opening bids March 3rd. So we'd come back to April LUTC for approval to award. And from then, it usually takes about a month for us to turn the contract around. So this would be something that we would see for summer 2023 construction, May-ish.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item C, which is the South 348th Street NHS Preservation Project at 85% design status report and authorization to bid. Make sure the mic is close to your mouth so everyone can hear. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Dovey, committee members, council members. My name is Jeff Hahn. I'm the civil engineer for the City of Federal Way, and I'm presenting the South 348th Street NHS project 85% design report and authorization to bid to committee. The project scope is pavement repair and overlay, and also ADA ramp upgrades. The available budget is $1.1 million, with the estimated expenditures also $1.1 million. The advertisement, it will be January 2023, and construction also will be on spring 2023. Staff is available for any questions you may have.
Any questions from anyone on the council? Is there a motion to move ahead?
Chair Dovey, I move to forward option 1 to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Hey.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item D, which is a resolution to accept transportation grant funding. Mr. Perez, you always get the fun ones where people want to give us money.
That just works out that way, thankfully, for me. Let's see, yes, this is the right one. And, let's see, where is it? I'm not seeing that. Okay, is the audience on Zoom seeing this? So I'm not sure that's the case. I keep clicking. Okay. Yeah, there. Oh, there we go. Now we got it, right? Okay. Grr. All right, well, so we have 4 grant applications that the council authorized us to apply for, and we have been awarded those funds. We applied for 17 different high-friction surface treatments on horizontal curves, and we got 6 of them awarded by WashDOT. The Pack Highway Trail from 308th to 288th, this is for construction of that project. And 320th Preservation Project from First to Pack Highway, and BPA Trail City Center Extension design money that would construct a non-motorized trail along 324th from Pack Highway up to the light rail station. So that's basically it. Happy to answer any questions.
So you rightfully got grants for $9 million when you add all those up?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. Council, any questions?
Will these grants fully fund the project?
Well, I'm showing here on the table that there's some required city match on most of them. That requires roughly $2.5 million as city match. And that is being worked into the budget process.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, could we have a motion to?
Would it be easier for me to make all the motion then?
Yeah, you make the whole motion, please.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed resolution to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Okay, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Mr. Perez, you get to do item A, Adaptive Traffic Control System, King County Agreement.
Yes. So the topic there is that we have finally reached agreement with King County on that project. And so basically, we would be taking over the signal timing and maintaining the equipment associated with the adaptive signal system at these 3 locations. Am I still not showing right? Oh, that's better. Thank you. So, so really, it just commits the city to providing the signal timing and maintaining what equipment that we're installing in the county's 3 signals as part of this project. It commits us to using the county's standards for certain signal timing parameters, and the terms of agreement is that it would be ongoing until either one of us cancels. The 3 intersections are shown here on the map, 320th and Military, 321st and Peasley Canyon, and 31st and Military. The project was already approved in the transportation capital budget. The annual operating costs are less than $20,000 a year and are already included in the traffic maintenance operating budget. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any council, Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Are King County standards different than ours?
They're virtually identical. So we calculate basically the yellow and all red times slightly differently, but we'll continue to use theirs. And, so there won't be any changes noticeable in that. So other than that, pretty much the same stuff.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from any councilman? And this will speed up the traffic flow through our city?
That is the intention, that we would be able to improve coordination that would continually adapt to whatever traffic conditions were at the time, as opposed to operating pre-designed signal timing plans.
Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed agreement to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to the award of the 2023 street sweeping service contract, item F.
Good evening, Committee Chair, members of council. Let's see if I can find mine. All right. Okay. Yes, we are here to award the 2023 street sweeping services contract. So we went out to bid. For the contract, we received one bid. The one bid was from McDonough and Sons, who happens to be our current sweeping contractor, and they do a really good job. So we propose to award them for a 2-year contract and also provide a contingency, which is allowed annual contract increase. The budget is funded out of our SWIM maintenance fund, because this is considered a best management practice to sweep the streets. To help with water quality. So the proposed recommendation is to award the 2023 street sweeping services contract to McDonough and Sons Incorporated, who's the lowest responsive responsible bidder, in the amount of $273,765.60 for a 2-year term, and authorize a contingency in the amount of $13,688.28 for total contract authorization of $287,453.88, and authorize mayor to execute the contract. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. At one time, were we talking about buying our own street sweeper and bringing this in-house?
I'm not aware that we would ever do that, and not something I would recommend. So.
Yes, we did talk about that at one point in time, and the council had Will Appleton run all the numbers to do it, and the added staff and the cost of the equipment, at that point, it was not financially wise to bring it in-house, and it was recommended and this was like 2014, 2015 timeframe, it was recommended to keep it contracted. We haven't looked at it again since then, but to Desiree's point, this is typically a night operation, and we don't staff 24/7, so we would have to. It's more than adding one staff person to bring this in-house, which was kind of the hiccup with it previously.
This is done mostly at night, not in the daytime?
That's correct.
So if we did, so we'd have to have at least 2 employees and 1 truck, or how does that?
Yeah, it would take quite a bit for us to be able to manage this, and the fact that we're only spending $40,000 a year on the contract, we couldn't even get 2 staff members funded for that.
So how many trucks do they have going through the city each day?
It really depends on the day. Most of the time, there's 2 during the day and 1 at night.
So I assume the night one isn't in a neighborhood?
It's on the arterials. And that's.
Because
our-
it can be noisy.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Patron? Go.
I move to forward option 1 to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to the next one, contract increase for concrete beveling services, trip hazard removal contract, item G.
Yes, I don't have a presentation, formal
Okay.
presentation for this one, so this is an existing contract that we've had for the last couple of years with Precision Concrete Cutting. They come in and they grind or bevel the concrete sidewalks where we have trip hazards. We have a huge need, and it's not something that we have enough time or resources to do ourselves. So the proposal is to increase the contract amount by $100,000 for a total contract amount of $350,000. And this is funded out of the street maintenance fund. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yes, I do have a question. So you are asking for additional 100,000. Is it because of the increase in labor costs in the service, or why additional?
It's just the amount we've been spending a year. We've been spending somewhere around $150,000 a year under this contract, and I'm out of money, and I'd like to continue them for another year. They've been doing great work, and we have huge needs and proposed budget to do so.
Thank you.
And this was this is in our current budget proposal, just not itemized as that, correct?
It's in the budget, so this is actually work for 2023 that is being requested. The 2022 work was done this summer and paid for, so this is an extension of time and budget for the contract.
And one more question. This is when you came to us and talked about where trees are growing through and we grind them down, and the citizens don't always call somebody out and we send somebody. Is this part of that?
This is part of that. In fact, I have my first customer that is going to take us up on the city doing the work and them paying us back.
Deputy Mayor Honda, I see you have a question.
That's in neighborhoods. But, so how do we know on what sidewalks we're going to be working on?
We have been prioritizing the arterials, so we started doing this work in the city center, and then we've been kind of radiating out from there. So we've done 320th, we've done 348th from one end to the other, we've done Pacific Highway from one end to the other, and we just completed this summer First Avenue South. So we will continue to prioritize the kind of higher volume areas on the arterials.
So do you just tell the team what street that they're going to be on, then they walk the sidewalk, and if they come to a sidewalk that needs to be beveled down, they do that?
Yeah, the first thing that they do is we do select the street. They go out and they do inspections, and I don't know if anybody's seen them on their Segways, but they'll actually go out there and determine on their Segway where the bumps are. Then they do an estimate for every single crack. They inventory all of them, and then they come back with an estimate, and then we authorize them to proceed.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? We have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to forward the proposed contract increase to the November 15, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second? I will second it. All in favor?
Second. Okay.
You weren't fast enough. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now go to item H, the TC3 development plan. This will probably take a little bit of time, so please,
Me getting it,
I hope this takes a lot of time, so.
me getting
please
it
jump
queued
in.
up.
And I'll preface before we have this presentation, Deputy Mayor Honda, myself, and Jack Walsh have been in meetings for almost, 8 months, 7 months on this? And of course, 22 years ago, I think we first started this project, something with downtown, or way back when the city started. So this is a long time running, 20-plus year story. Council members, Honda, Deputy Mayor Honda, myself, and Jack Walsh have been in meetings every other Friday. We've gotten to know Keith very well and a few other people. And so this is kind of the coming out party to talk to us about what we've been working on for the last, since the city's ever been around. So with that, you're on.
Practically.
We're
Good
very excited too.
Good evening, Chair Dovey, committee members Tran and Walsh, if you're still with us, Council President Kochmar, and Deputy Mayor Keith Niven, Planning Manager. So this evening, I'm going to go through a little bit of the kind of background, just a little bit, and then turn it over to the city's consultants to take you through the preferred plan. So just in terms of background, excuse me, and for those of you, we talk about TC3 a lot, and TC stands for Town Center, and there were actually 4 parcels to start with, and the city made a number of investments in its downtown from 2007 to 2014 in order to encourage strategic investment in a compact environment with a variety of uses, resulting in a unique sense of place. And I thought it was important for us to remember why in 2007 the city started to purchase some of these properties, and now that it's 15 years later, to see if we're actually still headed in the right direction. So TC1, year acquired was 2014, and right now that is the PAC. TC2 was purchased in 2007, and that's Town Square Park. I'm going to skip down to TC4, which was purchased in 2014, and right now that's under construction for Sound Transit parking. And then TC3 is what we're here to talk about this evening. So the project goal when we set this up was to develop a plan for TC3 that was informed by conversations with the community and the economic realities of the development market in Federal Way. So what we wanted to do was blend kind of what the community wanted for this property with what was marketable, so that we would be ensured that what we ultimately put on the table, somebody would take advantage of and build. So step 1 is the city sent out requests for proposals in February of this year to find a consultant to prepare a master development plan for TC3. Council President Kochmar and Deputy Mayor Honda both sat in on those interview panels. We had some great responses, and ultimately came to step 2, where the city hired Via Architects of Seattle, who partnered with Leland Consulting from Portland, and Leland Consulting provided that market analysis to help ground the preferred plan. Step 3, city staff hosted a number of community engagement efforts to ensure that the community's vision was represented, and we fed that information to Via. And then step 4 is shared the preferred plan with the council, and that's what we're starting this evening. So the outreach, staff-led community outreach. We were at 2 Saturday farmers markets. We were at Red, White, and Blues 4th, Kiwanis Salmon Bake, Planning Commission, Council Downtown Ad Hoc Committee, Complan Ad Hoc Committee, Lions Club Make Music, Chamber of Commerce 2 presentations, and it has been up on the city's webpage, our community outreach platform, Engage FW. You can see kind of a snippet from Engage FW here on the left. In the center was a board that we had where we gave stickers to community members to tell us what they wanted to see on TC3. So those stickers were either housing or employment or a public market or plaza space. So it gave us a good sense, and you can see there were a lot of Post-it notes for other things like a VFW office, and we heard senior center, as you heard earlier this evening, and community outreach. And then over here in the last photo from the right is, you can see me and Cheney both at Make Music. You can see the board there, which talks about downtown redevelopment. There was a picture of TC3, and so we spent basically all summer talking to the community about TC3 and about this project. So that all that information that we got from those hours of tabletopping, we then fed to our consultants to help them put together a plan. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to the city's consultants, let them introduce themselves and walk you through that preferred plan.
We're very excited to be here. Thank you very much, Council, for having us present to you. We'll walk through our agenda real quickly. As Keith mentioned, oh, sorry, I should introduce myself. My name is Kokala Lochin. I'm a principal at Via Architecture.
Can you speak up just a little bit also, or into the mic a little bit more, please?
Sure. My name is Kokala Lochin. I'm a principal at Via Architecture and project manager for this project.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Rowe with Via Architecture. I'm a principal and I work in development planning and as an architect. And we'll be tag teaming this presentation, so we'll come in and out of the microphone and enunciate as clearly as possible.
I think that was a hint for me. I'll try really hard not to talk fast. So please, if you can't hear, let us know and we'll do our best. We'll walk through a few things. This is our rough agenda. We just want to share the vision, guiding principles. We'll walk through some of the land uses that we explored with all the input that we've received from the community as well as members of the committee. And then we'll walk through what we're calling a development framework, which is, really keeping the structure of the parcels that we'll talk about. And then we've come to a preferred alternative, which is what we'll walk through mostly. And then finally, Keith will come back and share some recommendations. So going back to the point that Keith just made a minute ago about the sense of place, that's really where we started. I mean, having a vision and guiding principles is so important for any development, but particularly for this one. And the diagram on the right just shows, while this is the parcel, we'll talk about it more, it really is looking not just at the parcel inwards, but also outwards, how it fits back into the community and how it can really create a place. And part of that is also the identity. What is the civic identity that we want for the town center that can really be reflective of the community?
This is also representing a very interesting opportunity to catalyze everything around it, not just the project itself. So those orange squares represent blocks which are potential development sites in the future. And we quickly discovered in this process that if you do it right here, you can set the bar higher for everyone else around you. So as the city evolves, great projects and great public assets will be part of the future. And then further, the idea is that you're getting a tremendous investment with Sound Transit's light rail system coming here, and that this would be the northern anchor to your downtown. And the mall would be the southern anchor, with 21st being what eventually could be a very fantastic high street or the most traveled pedestrian street in town. So it's really creating the place that isn't there right now, but also leveraging what is coming with the light rail system.
Yeah, that's the last principle here, is capitalizing on the momentum as well as the timing. I mean, it's not just, obviously, as Matt mentioned, the Sound Transit system, but there's also a lot of new developments coming in. So there's a momentum right now. We want to make sure that we capture that of all of the recent investment, but then the timing with the station. And the yellow blocks over here are showing the Sound Transit parcels, and so their development. So really want to make sure that we link the two. And we've looked at, as we mentioned, a variety of land use examples. One of the comments that has come over and over that we receive from the community is that of a farmer's market or a community gathering space. And that could be a flexible event space, it could be a plaza, it could be a variety of different things that we explored, really to make sure that you have a place for people to gather. In addition to that, a need that came up over and over, and this is supported by the market, is that of residential. So making sure that the community can be right there, as well as activities on the ground floor to really activate the spaces. And that's where having a really important public realm, which, is really just places for people. It's streets, but it's making sure that people can walk and wander around. So it's really creating the place.
So one idea we wanted to share with you is that every city deserves to have a really great town center. Now, I know you have a park that's called Town Center, but that's more of a recreational facility. And this place gives you the opportunity to create a civic town center. In the traditional sense, that would be like a village green with a church on one end, maybe a civic building, a city hall on the other, and then lined with everyday market uses and retail. So that's what we're envisioning here, is having a place to gather as a town center, a place that to call the heart of your community.
And again, going back to the other opportunity here is food. Talking about the community, the growing community, the diversity here. Food is a reason to come together, and that's something that we found in many communities. We work for an international firm, we work all over the country and outside, and really seeing more and more of that opportunity for people to gather, having a public space or a market that really is the heart of that North Downtown. But also, making sure that there are other uses that are active that can face that public market, that can also be complementary. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a public market. It's one idea, but some version of a community space. And again, just thinking about food as one really great opportunity there.
So we looked at a lot of different typologies of development that can help activate this area, and we looked at different scales of residential intensity. We don't think the one on the left, the two-story townhouse, is taking full advantage of the opportunity here. So we're thinking something more dense, something 4 stories, 5 stories, 6, 7 stories possibly, as the type of development that could come here and really activate the place, as well as give the economics a chance for something to really catalyze the whole downtown.
And we've considered employment. Again, the market isn't as strong for employment, but we aren't talking about today. As Jack Dovey mentioned, this is a 20-year plan. So we'll talk about phasing in just a little while, but really looking at other uses, whether it's office, hotel, some kind of civic use, and the opportunity for them to be, again, fronting the public square, but really helping to create a space that's active all for more hours than just one. So not just residential, but potentially also people, and the ability to integrate parking to really use that as a resource, in the evenings, in the daytime.
Okay, we want to look specifically at the 7-acre parcel we're working with. I think everyone knows where it is. It's next to the PAEC, Performing Arts Center, and it's a blank slate to speak of right now because it's mostly a parking lot and an empty retail one-story building. And I think, is everyone familiar with the term stramp? That's the walkway that's a ramp and a stairway that goes up right off 316th. We will use that term, the stramp, just because that's the name urban designers give that type of thing. So we developed a framework of how to create development parcels here that could surround and enhance that heart location we're talking about. So also at that heart location, we can create a landing, a real nice open space that's open and visible from looking up 21st Avenue. So we have this framework of 4 development sites with that heart location in the middle. And next, we looked at how we would access it with automobiles and pedestrians, and make a nice street grid, because with your big street blocks here in Federal Way, we have to carve them up to make them more urban and make them more accessible in the interior. And that helps manage traffic better when you can have more routes through these big blocks. And then looking at how to apply the development framework and activate the ground floor. The heart area is the areas framed in red is where we can see different types of retail activation, where the yellow areas around the perimeter would be something that would be a different kind of activation, but more based on the surrounding community. And so, go ahead.
Sorry, before we go there, and so just, so we are going to focus on the preferred. We did consider a variety of alternatives. We landed at 3 different alternatives, 3 different ways of movement, and a little bit different with the parcels. And then based on all the feedback and input, we have a preferred alternative, which is what we'll spend today.
So in developing an alternative, we have to keep in mind that this is a framework and a criteria that we're setting forward that a developer or a series of developers will work with the city and negotiate the very more details than just this. So we're setting up what we think is possible and feasible and reasonable, and this is just the first step in actually achieving it. So when we came to a preferred alternative, we did use that heart location as the town square with a civic pavilion, which could be an event space, it could be a farmer's market, could be a variety of things, maybe something quite flexible. And the flexibility would come in its use during different days of the week, on weekends and at night. So it can be that civic place where people gather, the very interesting place that everyone wants to go to on a regular basis. So the colors you see on this 3D model, looking at it from the air, the yellow represents what we think residential would be. The blue building off to the right is office, about 155,000 square feet, so it'd be a nice headquarters. And then that brownish color in the middle is a hotel with about 136 hotel rooms. So as I mentioned, we use the word Acropolis, which is what you have in this circumstance when you look up 21st Avenue. The Strap creates a very nice platform to have all this activity happening. And I think if you can see it 3-4 blocks away, and it announces itself with this, a lovely landmark sign, something like the Pike Place Market has something like this. And so you can see it from quite a ways away, and you just know that that's a destination. And so it will be the lifeblood of downtown. There's also the opportunity to connect it with the Sound Transit parking garage, if that can be negotiated, and also find a accessible route with an elevator to bring you down on the right side, down to 316th. So we want a lot of pedestrians walking up and down 21st and finding their way back and forth to this, this north anchor to downtown. So what do we have when it comes right down to it? On the 4 different development sites, we can achieve about 715 units of residential in this configuration, 133,000 square feet of office. There's retail components underneath all of this and that 126 unit hotel. So there's a lot of diverse uses here. And then structured parking either embedded within these buildings or underneath, including the opportunity to supplement the PAEC's parking under the town square. And this is just another view looking from the east up at 23rd Avenue. There could likely be a pedestrian way between the blue office building and the yellow residential. And we lined that street with townhouses with entrances as a nice way to activate that and keep eyes on the street. And this is looking from the north on 314th, just looking back at the project. And this is more of an eye-level view down at the public space, the town square, where you'd see that event center, or it could be a retail space. And the brownish building in the background could possibly be a hotel with lots of restaurants and active retail fronting that. And I was mentioning earlier, this could be populated with tents during certain events like farmers markets or high stalls where you could have craft fairs or book fairs or other kinds of events during different times of the day and week.
Yeah, and just to add to what Matt was saying, just a few key characteristics. I mean, ultimately, you know, there are some We mentioned the criteria, we mentioned the reason why we want to do something like this, but making sure that those active uses really look back to safety as well as vibrancy, so making sure that there's activity around here, but also a sense of sort of the eyes on the street because there are people moving around. Really want to create a safe space, contrary to some of the drug-filled park things that we've been hearing about. You really want to have people here so that doesn't happen. Also thinking about, the variety of uses we want here. I mean, as you think to the future, I mean, I think the thing that we found over and over is spaces need to be flexible because you just don't know. A few years from now, you want to do something else. Activities might change. So making sure that you have a variety of spaces that are diverse in character really help, with that momentum and making sure that they'll really be functional for whatever use might happen. Going back to the pedestrian-first design that we've talked quite a lot about here is we've sized the blocks really more of an urban scale just to allow people to wander around and making sure that there's a lot of accessibility from both within as well as outside, and for both people as well as cars, making sure that we have a bit of both. And then also, going back to sort of environmental benefits, trees as well as green infrastructure, these are desirable elements that we want to make sure have space here, and also managing stormwater, so it's very much, again, part of the whole plan. And then finally, this is really about bringing activity as well as energy, and so making sure that you have those those uses. That's why we looked at a variety of them, because we really want that excitement here. That's something that we think is a real opportunity. And so with that.
Oh, that's my cue. Okay, so the policy question in front of the council is, should the city release a request for proposals to solicit developer proposals for the city-owned TC3 property? And the options considered, the recommendation, and the next steps. So option number one is move forward with releasing a request for proposals for TC3. Option number two would be not to move forward and provide direction to staff. The mayor's recommendation is to move forward with releasing a request for proposals, but that's not going to happen tonight. Tonight, is a setup for our next conversation, which is going to be the November 15th study session of the City Council. So my expectation for that meeting will be that we will spend a lot more time, less time on the plan, although, if there's questions, we'll go through a very brief recap of the preferred plan, but to really talk about the next steps. So what do we expect with the request for proposals? What will we get back from the development community? What are the touch points for the city council along the way? Because there's going to be multiple touch points for the city council before we ever dispose of the property. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and see if there are any questions that anybody has for any of us.
I'm sure there are lots of questions. I have some anyway, but who wants to ask? Anybody want to ask a question? Okay, well, I'll ask a couple questions. And I forgot to note that Erica Norton's also on the call. I saw her on the screen there. So my question, the definition of farmer's market, public market, to me are totally two different things. So I want to make sure we get out of our head farmer's market and thinking more towards, at least this is my opinion, more towards public market, so it gives a lot more flexibility. That's just a comment on that. And I'm not sure that when we go, I want to go out to RFP where people can come back and tell us what they want to do as quickly as possible. But I think we have to have some flexibility that, although this says a hotel, to me that's a building spot. And this is you had in there an office building, but that's a building spot. It's not like you got to come, in my opinion, I may have difference here because Deputy Mayor Honda, you were in all these meetings and you may have a different thought, but that the plan is how the use of this property is so the developers with their creativity can come back and say, yeah, this is really great, but building a hotel right now in today's world may not be the best thing to start with because everybody wants something different in the future. So I want to make sure that we're not locked in, that that's what we're asking for, but more the concept. Is that correct?
So there was a lot. You kind of had a lot of stuff there. So let me start with that last part. So yes, what we're envisioning right now, and we'll get into this in a deeper dive on the 15th, is that the RFP will solicit letters of interest from builders. And what it'll have a copy of our preferred plan. But it'll also tell those developers or potential developers that they're welcome to propose what they see as being a comparable or better solution for the property. So the goal is for us to cast a wide net and make sure that anybody who's interested, we at least have the opportunity to have a conversation about what their interest might be and how that might fit with the city's vision for our downtown and the property. As far as the conversation about farmers market, public market, community building, so the plan that VIA has put together shows a building basically sitting on top of that plaza space. And that building could be a public market. It could be a community space, it could be a senior center, it could be a number of different things. That's a decision for the council somewhere down the road. The farmers market, could fit on that space in addition to that building, because that public gathering space is big enough to host multiple kind of activities at one time. So I think it's all inclusive. We can do it all. Thank you.
Yes, I see your hand there, Councilmember Walsh.
Yes, I think that input from, with putting out the RFP and getting input and ideas from developers can be very valuable. Currently, I'm in Texas visiting family here, and in the city of Southlake, Texas, which has done a remarkable job in the last 20 years on the development of their downtown, going from nothing to an absolutely gorgeous downtown. And I actually met with the director of planning and development this past week to hear a little bit about what they did. And a lot of what of the success that they've had came from the developer, the actual developer, and ideas of the developer. And so I love what Keith and the consultants have done. I think our meetings over the last months have been very helpful and informative, and I think that it's formed a great groundwork. But I'm very anxious for the RFP to go out and to see just what additional ideas developers have that can further enhance the possibilities.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Keith and Cheney for all of the work you've done with us, and it's been very interesting, and I've learned a lot. In looking at social media this weekend since this came out, there's a lot of discussion about not wanting housing here. But that is exactly what we have found that developers are willing to put here. We might want all office buildings, and we might want a hotel, and we might want City Hall, we might want a civic center, but that's not what we're finding out that developers are willing to build. And we're not going to be building this. We're going to be selling the property, and we're not building it. So we need to find out what the developers want, who is willing to build here in Federal Way, and what their ideas are. And if that doesn't meet with what we want as a council or as a city, then I'm not sure what we're going to do, because this is what we're hearing from multiple developers. Not just one, not just two, but multiple developers. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council President Kotar.
Thank you. So maybe you could, Keith, just explain to our citizens why we took the step of hiring VIA architect, and why didn't, another question might be on their minds would be, why didn't a developer just come in and apply to build? We have the space, we own the property, and we've been waiting for years. Second, third would be, will we be selling the whole parcel or in smaller parcels? And then the fourth question would be, are we going to give these developers any incentives to build? So a lot of things there, just so they understand why we took the steps we did, and so they understand what we might get in the end. And as I understand, we're getting the same advice from all of the developers, which is kind of interesting, but thank you.
Okay, Council President, thank you. That was a litany of questions. Let me see if I can get all of them. So the first question is why didn't we just go hire a real estate agent and sell the property? And I think we've been down that path before. I understand we actually did for a very short period of time sell the property and then get it back. But you know, as soon as we sent that RFP out, I started getting phone calls from real estate agents representing investors willing to buy the property from us, you know, basically looking for a deal. And, you know, I finally got to the point where I said, make me an offer and I'll give it to the mayor and we'll see what happens. And they stopped calling. And so, you know, the thing is, you know, there's people chasing real estate deals all the time. And why we took the path we did was really because we want something built on the property. You know, it's been sitting there basically underutilized for quite a number of years. And the pathway that we're on, I didn't do that. The pathway that we're on is to get us to a place where we actually get redevelopment and actually catalyze our downtown like we wanted to. So I think that's why we hired Via. Via's very experienced at working with builders and bringing that perspective to the table and to the city to help us put that plan together. Whether or not so first off, we will, and you guys own the property, so you guys get to decide, but my expectation is that we'll continue to own the PAC, and we would own that plaza space to the east of the PAC, and the rest of the property we would sell. I don't think we want to be in the real estate business. I think we'd like to get rid of as much of that property as we can to get it back on the tax rolls. And I think the only thing that we would keep is the PAC and the plaza. But ultimately, that's your decision. Incentives. Let's say that even though I think I agree with Deputy Mayor Honda, you know, what we've heard is unless there was an employer that was ready to move their office to Federal Way, and nowadays, when we've got things like remote working and hybrid work schedules, getting someone to want to basically move into a 130,000 square foot office building is probably not likely. But let's assume that one of these letters of interest we get back is from a company that wants to relocate. And let's assume that for them to purchase that property or acquire that property, they would ask the city to basically give the property to them at no cost. And they would then build an office building and move their company here. That would be an incentive. And I think we are open to having conversations to see what people are asking for. And if somebody is offering to do something that's above our expectations, if there are some things that we can add to make that deal happen, I think we would definitely be interested in that. So that's a whole conversation level that we have after we get those initial letters of interest from developers.
Could you talk about underground parking and TIF and all those fun things potentially?
We can start to talk about that. So there's the plaza space, and as Matt and Kokla said, right now we envision 2 to 3 levels of parking underneath that. And that's roughly 450 to 600 parking spaces, and that covers the 333 parking spaces we need for the PAC, and there's some additional public parking spaces for the community. When they want to come downtown, it's easy to park. And so those underground parking spaces are going to be expensive. And we're talking probably north of $40 million. And how are we going to fund that? And so one of the things that we're exploring right now, and we're going to have a bigger conversation about this at the council retreat in January, is tax increment financing. And so Washington State passed legislation in 2021, so it's very new for Washington, that allows cities to basically leverage increases in property taxes to pay for public improvements to help further development. So that's a whole other conversation we're going to have, but it's looking for a way to make some of these infrastructure improvements real so that this development actually happens the way we're envisioning it. So we are exploring a pathway to kind of make this real.
Jack, did you have a question? I see your hand still raised.
No, I just forgot to put it down.
Okay. Erica, you've been there. Do you have any questions? Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one comment, Keith. The piece of property we bought for development that we sold and got back is where the town park is. It's not where the PAC is.
Oh, okay. That was hard to tell from the city's
We actually,
website today.
we did sell,
Well,
where
maybe
the,
that was different, but I was on the council when we bought the town park for that 30-story building, that we got that park, that back, and it became a park. But maybe you did.
we sold part of the TC3 for a hotel.
Oh,
The hotel did not decide to build there, obviously, and then we purchased the property back.
okay. So this is our third time. We got to
Yeah.
get this right.
We needed a different pathway, so I think that's one of the reasons why we
Okay.
went. We
Well, I
chose
just
this path.
remember when we bought this, what's now Town Park, it was supposed to be a 30-story building. Remember that, Linda? And we ended up with it back, and now it's a park.
There were going to be 4 of them.
Yeah, there's supposed to be 4 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hunt, I see your blue light.
This is really exciting, and I've been waiting for years to be able to start the discussion about this. We have, this is property that we own as a city, but Sound Transit is developing their property. The Commons will be developing their property. And what we hope to do is get a plan that everything fits in and works, and we become a downtown that people are proud of and people want to come to, not only to live, but to work and to play. And so we do need people who live here. We want to know what you want. This isn't just for the city council to make a decision. We need to hear from everyone. And we're looking forward to getting your comments. We're looking forward to reading your emails, and just please let us know what you would like to see.
And there's just one other thing I want to say. It's not our property, it's their property.
But I would like to mention, let's not sit on this a long time. Let's take action and at their next meeting, give some directions for somebody to do something.
I think Councilmember Walsh's hand went up again.
Mr. Walsh, you're up.
All right. First off, I would like to thank Keith and Cheney exceedingly for the work that they've done. I think that they've done an incredible job of working with the consultants and working with us as council members and developing ideas and plans, and I want to thank them for it. Just by way of comment also, with the light rail coming in, when the station opens, that has the potential to be either the worst thing that has ever happened to Federal Way or the best thing. It can go either way. And a lot of that will depend on what we do, I think, with TC3, because TC3 is going to impact what Sound Transit does in that area, and also what can happen later on in the Merlin-Geyer property, the mall. And so I think that this is the first step, and this can be the catalyst towards other things. So I think it's very important that we do it wisely, and that we have patience with it also. Hopefully we can find a developer that will want to do stuff right away. But if not, I think it's more important to get the right thing. The right thing is more important than doing something just for the sake of doing it.
I have one more question. As we go through this process, will we start doing the zoning and the different things that can speed up the process when we finally get to the right developer and the right proposal? Is that kind of on the work plan?
So part of the vision for this is that we could incorporate the land use permit into the development agreement to try and, excuse me, collapse that timeline for permitting so that once the council approves development agreements, they could go straight into building permit applications and construction permits. So that's the hope, and that'll take a lot of work, but I think we're up for it.
I have one more thing.
Okay, Deputy Member Honda?
I think Councilmember Walsh touched on this, but we may be needing to be very patient and to wait before the whole property is developed. It could be one parcel could be sold, and maybe others would wait to see what happens with that, because we need to do it right the first time and not go in and try to redevelop it later. That would be very difficult. So we may have to be patient. We've been waiting a long time. It won't hurt us to wait a few more years if we need to, but we need to do it right the first time.
I would make a comment. I don't disagree with Deputy Mayor Honda, but with the economy and with what's going on around the world, and who knows what's going to happen in 3 years, I mean, I would encourage us to think about how we lock this down so we have the flexibility to move ahead, where somebody can move ahead faster and not end up 5 years from now and none of us are sitting up here and nobody has any industrial knowledge of what we've been done. And then we have a whole bunch of other people who haven't spent 20 years doing this, figure out what happens next. So there's a fine line between making the decision and having a thoughtful team put it together like Jack talked about and what Keith has been doing, and also making it so we have a runway to get things done. Are we supposed to move this forward to the next meeting? I saw it's an action item. I mean, is the council ready to move an action to move it to November 15th?
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Tron?
I move to forward the agenda item to the November 15, 2022 business agenda.
I second.
Okay, and I'll third it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful presentation and all the work that's been going on, and thank you all for sitting through and listening to this. And we'll have more at our council meeting. It's on the agenda as a study session at 5 o'clock. It's on the council meeting for business to be able to make a decision or not make a decision or whatever we decide. So this has been a 20-plus year train, so we're glad that we're getting down there. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the follow-up to all this, Sound Transit. So please, we're all ears.
All right. Good evening. So yes, I'm Ken Smith with the Public Works Department, and I'm here for the update on the Sound Transit activities for the City of Federal Way. First off, for all the activity north of South 317th Street, they are continuing their work. Oh, am I sharing right now?
Can the people on Zoom see? Because I'm just wondering if
Say that again?
the people on Zoom, can they see what's going on? If they could respond?
No, we cannot.
Okay, one second.
Now we can see it.
Okay. So for north of 317th Street, they're continuing landscaping, noise wall construction, MSC wall construction through the whole corridor. And that includes prepping for the wet season, so a lot of the areas they're trying to stabilize. They have chosen to design for the slope stability issue that they encountered that's north of the city, along north of the proposed Star Lake Station. It's a long span option, so they're working on designing it right now. They continue to do deck work for South 288th Street, Military Road at Star Lake, and then Military Road at South 304th. And I've got some pictures I'll show in just a little bit. And then they did pour concrete for South 288th Street last week, which was the first week of November. For the city center, they poured concrete for the deck over South 320th Street, also last week. They're continuing to do the landscaping for 21st Avenue South, which should hopefully happen the next couple of weeks in November. Early station work is ongoing, canopy steel, electrical work, and construction of the staircases and elevator steel. And then construction of the garage is ongoing with the first level driving surface that was poured this week. And they were expecting to do utility crossings, but have pushed them back, and for 23rd and 317th, they've pushed them back to the start of 2023, partly to do some permitting with Puget Sound Energy. And then construction of the end-of-line facility has also started. So real quick, this is at South 272nd Street. This is a drone footage. This is just a still that I think they took about second week in October. So it's not quite up to date, but this is roughly how it looks now. You can see them they finished their work on the bus drop-off and the parking for Mark Twain Elementary, and they're going to be doing the play fields, I believe, next year. This is at Military Road and South Star Lake Road. There's the girders that they erected, and some of the deck work has commenced from there, so it's a little bit further along than this. Moving on to South 288th Street, similar thing, working on the deck work that's above, and then they did the pour, but this is just prior to. Then at 304th Street, most of that deck work is done, but I believe they're doing pig seal work, which is like a spray they have to put on the outside. And coming into the town center, you can see the station is here in this steel, in this location. There's the twin tracks that come in. And then the girders that they put over 320th. And they have poured those as well, so. As far as the operations and maintenance facility south, I don't have any updates since the last LETC meeting. We're still working with them on some of their location siting. And similar for the Tacoma Dome link, we're continuing to work with Sound Transit staff on potential environmental constraints. And I'll answer any questions.
Council President Colchmar.
The artwork, is that still being discussed, or have we heard?
Yes, last they told me they went back to the artist and he's developing a new design. When they have, they gave me a rough idea at the start of the year they might have a new proposal, but there's no concrete date on that. So when I hear something, I'll bring it forward.
And second, with Fife, is that delaying the project moving into Tacoma? The decisions on the Fife and the, apparently they have a lot of land use issues with regard to water retention.
There's been I don't know if they've put a concrete number on it actually setting a delay based on it, but there has been some discussions on the location of the station in that area. Last I've seen, they have a couple of options to move it out of the floodplain that may solve the issue. So.
Yeah, the quicker they can move it forward into Tacoma, it's going to help us, because then we won't be the end of the line,
right.
Which we don't want to be.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. I have a few questions. One, the last time I saw a drawing of what the finished product is going to look like was maybe 2 years ago. Is it still the same?
Are you talking about the Federal Way Link project, or which project?
Federal, yeah.
Yeah, so there have been some minor changes to it just as the designs progress, but in concept, yes, it's still the same.
It would be nice we have some new council members to show them what the
We
know,
can
what we saw?
yeah, we can certainly share with what has been shared previously with council. I'm not sure there is more current renderings than what you have already seen, but we can certainly make available what was previously shared with council.
Okay. We've had some discussions at Skateboard and some other transportation committees about Sound Transit has had some discussions themselves, the board, as to how one would get on a train, you know, that in other areas, when you get on a train, you go through a turnstile, and you don't go through the turnstile unless you have your ticket. And there's been some discussion about changing the way people get on the Sound Transit trains because of not everyone getting on and paying. You know, because you get on, you buy your ticket, you get on, and maybe you have a ticket, maybe you don't, maybe you get caught, maybe you don't. But anyway, is this being designed so that if they decide to do that before this opens in 2025, that it would work? Have you heard anything?
Yes, I'm familiar with the conversation. So this station is being designed the same way as all the existing stations are, so that there's the plaza level and then there's the boarding level. So there is nothing in the current design that would accommodate what you outlined, but you are correct. That is a operations, not a construction conversation on Sound Transit's side. That has nothing to do with the city. That is being discussed. So what they've done is they've basically ensured that the station would be able to be retrofitted the same way every other station in the system would have to be retrofitted, so they would all function exactly the same. So I'm not sure that's the best answer, but that's the answer they've shared with us.
Well, as long as they're thinking ahead and about doing this. The end of the line facility, is that where the Red Robin was? And what is exactly what is that?
Yes, that is where the Red Robin was. It's essentially part of the maintenance for the facility. There's an elevator access and a stairway that's essentially just for employees to access to go up to inspect. A couple of, I believe there's a security office, but it's just for Sound Transit security.
And when this is no longer the end of the line, which we hope sooner than later, will that facility still be there?
I believe so.
And as to what Council President was talking about, we heard last summer that there was going to be a public meeting about issues that Sound Transit has with going to Tacoma. So do we know any more about when that public meeting is going to happen?
And nothing yet. I'm still waiting to hear back. They are waiting for the tribes to comment on it before they set a date. So until we hear that, we don't have anything.
Okay. You know, we're getting into the holiday season when it's really hard to get people out to public meetings, so.
Right. I've expressed it to Sound Transit staff, and they continue to say that they're waiting for the tribes to comment. So.
All right, well, we really need to keep the public informed of what's going on. And I would say it's been 2 years this month since we last saw that elephant on the dead tree and the new artwork was discussed. So hopefully he's been working for 2 years to come up with something that will be awesome and wonderful for Federal Way.
I hope so. They've told me the elephant is gone. They reiterated that to me again today, that
Awesome.
the elephant is gone.
Thank you.
And the real word is elegant, elegant.
You know, I've never seen the dead elephant on a tree. I'd like to see that.
It was an elephant on a dead tree.
Anyway, I do have one question on your, if I could, on your delay where they've come up with a way to get through the soil stability.
Yes.
And what are we going to do? We're going to have a long trestle, or what's the delay time? Is that sped up, or?
I think they're still. I think they're still set on their original date for how long they expect the delay to be. There's no update, but it's essentially.
Could you reiterate how long that is?
They just said 2025. I don't think they have a concrete month, but 2025. And then the design is a long span that basically the two foundations will go between where the slide area is. So they don't touch anything on it, and it won't affect any of I-5.
So, okay, so we need to plan for 2025. Any other questions? Erica, Jack, do you have any questions?
Yes. Well, I had a couple. One you just answered my question is now that they know how they're going to spend that, if they defined any better in 2025 when they anticipate opening the station, and it sounds like the answer is no. Secondly, with the property that's going to be surplus there, will it be surplus prior to the station opening or when the station is opened, or what kind of timeline is there on that?
So right now they're working towards, kind of similar to TC3, they're working towards trying to find developers that will be interested and options for the space. So they're actively planning for that portion, and then I believe it happens that once the station is open, then the property can be developed. But there's a period where they could be doing permitting before that happens, so that they might start construction as soon as it opens, potentially.
All right, thank you. And then also, when can we, as the city, discuss further with them just how they're going to handle this 80/80 situation as far as the type of housing that will eventually go in?
I'm not sure. Can you clarify that a little bit in terms of what they will put in?
80% of the housing units are supposed to be less than 80% of the average income.
I'm not sure.
So, council member, there's not a defined time for that conversation. If that's something we want to approach Sound Transit with, I think we probably need to come to consensus on what the request is and then present that to them. Ideally, that would happen, I think, before kind of the timeline that Kent just outlined, probably by the end of 2024. So there's some time on it. But as of right now, there's not a defined check-in point where the city provides that input.
Okay. I think we need to make sure that we're staying very much on top of that and not letting them not be making plans that are against what we want them to do, and make sure that we're very involved with the final outcome there.
So if Chair Dovey is in agreement, that might be a good topic for maybe January for LUTC to bring that back, and we can try and, with the holidays coming up, we can try and do some research with Sound Transit and see if we can get someone here from Sound Transit for the January or February meeting.
Yeah, I think it would be good if I can, and then I'll get to you, Deputy Mayor Honda. If we could have a work study or something, like we just had a presentation on what we're doing at TP3, that we could actually, 2025 is going to be on us before we even know it. If we want to develop this in in conjunction with what we're doing, it would be great to be able to let people start building in 2024 before this thing even opens. I don't know if that's possible, but anything we can do to.
It's not. So we looked at that extensively during the development, and Sound Transit is using it as a laydown yard basically until they put it into operation. And that's kind of the comment that Kent made about the permitting. So the ability to advance the timeline is really if they can surplus the property to a developer to allow the permitting to start. That will advance it, but they will not actually start construction until after the station is operational.
Okay, well, we should.
Yeah, we can talk about offline whether it's a study session or LUTC is better.
As a council, let's probably try to do that. And Deputy Member Honda, you have your blue light on there.
I was under the understanding that the city is working with Sound Transit on a development agreement for that property.
So we have a development agreement in place that allows a development agreement for that parcel to be done, but that's at their discretion. So there's no work actively being done on it right now. Right now, they'll follow the normal land use permitting process, but that was built into the development agreement for the overall project that and I'm not sure off the top of my head if either party can request that or if only Sound Transit can, but that a development agreement could be done for that, for the development of the TOD parcels. So and certainly if you go down that road, there's some more flexibility as well. So we can look into that and bring that all back as part of the future meeting.
Right, because we don't want to be surprised when they come up with
Agreed.
what they want to do when we might have different ideas.
And that gets back to what the allowable underlying land use is in the downtown. That's really where the city's authority comes from. So if it's an allowable use in there, that's, they have the right to do it. So that's part of one of the things we need to look at as a city or as council, the council needs to be comfortable with.
As long as staff is making sure that we're not going to get caught in something that we're not happy with as a council.
Director Davis and I can talk about this and come back
Okay.
to council, like I said, whether it's LUTC or a study session.
Okay.
And hopefully have someone from Sound Transit there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other things before we call an evening? Again, I want to thank everybody that's come and sat through the meeting and given us their thoughts and their testimony. And there's 9 innings in every baseball game, so we're only in the 8th or something. Or no, we'll keep moving ahead. Thank you. We will adjourn. I thought I did, but I guess I have to do it officially.